Good morning and welcome to the Red Net Show, where it's always morning, even in the afternoon. I'm your host, Jay Edgar, whose microphone works better when it's turned on, and I'm joined on the other side of the screen today by special guest Clint from the Liberty Lockdown Podcast. Clint, thanks for sitting in for Elaine today. I know with the election season coming up, it's going to start getting really, really busy for her, and glad you could come by and help us out here.
Hey, man, anytime I can help, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's awesome here. Thanks. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to today, too, and it was kind of a little bit of a heavy week. We had the debates this week, and this whole weird thing with Hunter's laptop is just, it gets crazier by the day.
I haven't even heard the latest from this morning, so I don't know if there's anything new, but I'll wait for you to.
I haven't even seen if there's anything new from. I'm a little scared to find out if there's anything new from this morning off of this here after what we saw over the weekend. I've seen more of Hunter Biden's penis than I ever want to see for the rest of my life.
I actually didn't even look up the photos, so I don't know. Is it impressive? Be honest.
Well, the blur filter is impressive. It actually hangs beyond the blur filter on top of that, too. So.
Oh, my God. I'll have to check that out.
And we will not be putting that up on the screen because that is Wojcicki bait, and that will get us shut down on YouTube. I think that'll get us shut down on DLive, to be completely honest, and they don't give a fuck over on DLive.
Yeah, we'll hold that for I don't know. What's even more gangster than DLive? I don't even know. Is there something?
4chan.
Okay, we'll save it for 4chan.
Well, we do have a list of stuff to get to today. As I mentioned up at the top of the show, the debates were this past week, and we'll talk a little bit about what happened there. I've got some video to go along with that, and we'll just do some of the review and see what happened there, talk a little bit about that. Hunter's emails came out, and even more stuff came up off the laptop. There's definitely some stuff to watch for off of this with what they're seeing, but I'm going to warn people again, don't go too far down the underage stuff because the business dealings and everything else that's legitimate on there is the damning part for the presidential election. So we'll take a bit and talk about that. Biden had a rally that was very well attended up in Pennsylvania. However, it was attended mostly by Trump supporters, so we'll talk a bit about that. Amy Coney Barrett is set to be sworn in by Clarence Thomas tonight. Probably right after we're getting off the air tonight. So we'll talk a bit about what happened there, how we got from one place to the other. And Biden's tax rate came out, and suddenly 50 Cent decided he didn't want to be 20 Cent, and Chelsea Handler had a specific message for him. So I've got that message recorded here. We'll watch the video off that. We'll listen to what she had to say, and we'll wonder what it is that she could try to do to possibly change his mind. It's going to be all of that and more over on the Red Net Show. Thanks for tuning in with us live. We stream to DLive, Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, and Facebook. My Periscope hasn't been working lately, so that actually might still be on the fritz at this point here, but we're streaming live to all the other platforms. If you're over on Facebook, hit one of the links above you in the description and get in the live chat because we do take live chat in between topics. So come on in there, get your questions in, and come and hang out with us. Or if you can't catch us live, you can catch us back on demand over on YouTube, over at BitChute.com. We store our archives, or you can go back and check us out on the audio platforms, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go ahead and pick up one of those and take us on the go. And if you're over on iTunes, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That helps us move up the charts. Lastly, Go and check out my content along with other great content like the Freckles and Brit Show, the Generational Gap, the Daily Ignoramus, the R-Rated Conservative, and the Breakdown with Birkenhoff over on freedomscoop.com, which will be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. Come and pick up some of our swag and help us support great creators over there. So you're new to this show here, but we've been running in the same circles for a little while. We've even been on streams before for other creators here, but my audience may not be familiar with you. So why don't you tell my audience just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Clint. I am born and raised California, San Diego area, and second generation libertarian, entrepreneur, kind of quasi-retired, and was my retirement was expedited by Newsom's lockdown orders in March or April, and as such, I started my own podcast called Liberty Lockdown, appropriately since my liberty had been locked down, and I'm 27 episodes deep, and my threads on the lockdown and how ineffective it was and how unconstitutional and everything else kind of went viral. That gave me some, I don't know, credibility or clout within the community, and then it's been all uphill from there, or all downhill, however you want to look at it. But I'm really enjoying it, and glad to know you. Glad to know that everybody in the community makes me feel a little bit less crazy, you know?
Well, I know that you get this all the time, and this was definitely something that was said the last time you and I were on the same stream together, but we were all excited to know that you are, in fact, actually a semi-attractive man and not an overweight Patriot hat-wearing woman. As your Twitter profile once suggested.
Yes, that was my alternate personality. But she makes appearances from time to time. For those who don't know, my AVI used to be like a 400-pound lady in an American flag bikini. That was before I came out of the closet as a, average looking dude. But anyways, yeah, that was how most people got to know me when I was Libertarian Thought, and now I am just Liberty Lock Pod on Twitter, and Liberty Lockdown is the show.
Well, I think we better get down into some of the news here. Let's check in with the live chat here before we get on to that. But we've got a bunch of stuff. I've got one of the most packed lightning rounds that I've had so far since I started the show here. But let's do the greetings here and make sure that everybody's up here. It looks like I've got Yama Fago, one of the more suggestive names over on the internet. That's John over on the Generational Gap. Dude, I still remember.
John?
What's that?
Oh, I just said, what's up, John?
I still remember when we were, before any of us had podcasts, when we were all listening to Beauty and the Beta all the time, and Blonde would read out his name during the super chats and say, I mean, there was no chill behind it ever. It was always, I'm a faggot, says.
Yeah, I'm a fago. That is aggressive.
Saint says, good evening, bitches. Wyatt over on the Breakdown with Birkenhoff says, yo, he's joining us over on the Twitch side. Looks like I've got Harvey McLeod joining us here. Forgot that it was Monday, so this was linked to her over in the YouTube. So, and then she says, the crack pipe thing, it's all real. With some Twitch emojis over there, so thanks for checking us out over there. After October, we're in for a big crunch time at office. Yeah, no, it's going to be fun. Definitely going to be fun, especially with, I know what Harvey does for a living too, so immigration law and everything else that's coming up after the election. This is going to be a crazy month for a lot of people out there. And we'll check back in here after the lightning round, so hang out, throw your messages in, do your commentary. Let's talk about what was happening in the news. Starting out with, this is ABC7 Miami says, Miami police officer photographed wearing a pro-Trump mask while in uniform. And this caused all kinds of stir because, of course, he went to go vote with a Trump 2020 mask and his uniform on at the same time. Not so bad that he was doing both of the two together, mask and uniform, because that's against the law in most jurisdictions. But then he went to the polling place as well. Did you see this one?
I did not. And why would that? All right, so you said it's not even legal? Why is it not legal?
In most jurisdictions, it's not legal to have a political message on while you're wearing a uniform of the state.
Okay. Well, then I guess that's fair then.
So, yeah, he caused quite a panic. A lot of people were saying that he was up there being a voter intimidator, intimidating people standing up at the polls, and a lot of complaints came up. This was in Miami-Dade County, too, on top of it. So a lot of complaints went up to the brass in Miami-Dade, and the guy wound up getting suspended. So,
oh, wow. Well, if it's the rules, then I guess I understand the concern. I think it's a little bit ridiculous to assume that it's, voter suppression or intimidation just because he's a cop there. But I am afraid of cops, so I guess I kind of sympathize.
Are you a cop, man?
I'm not a cop, no. Nor a Fed, for the record.
And we got a lot of feds going up over on Twitter now. A lot of people popping up over there with that kind of messaging on there.
Yeah.
News out of
Wow.
Pennsylvania. Robert sides with liberals. SCOTUS allows Pennsylvania to accept ballots 3 days late. Now, this is a little bit of a misleading title because what happened was it was brought up to the Supreme Court to see if they wanted to hear the case or not. And in a 4-4 decision, it came out tied, which means by default the Supreme Court rejected hearing the case. It got kicked back down to the lower case. Or I'm sorry, the lower court. The lower court decided that yes, they can accept ballots postmarked up to 3 days after Election Day. So up until Friday in Pennsylvania, you can get your mail-in ballot in. What do you think about this one?
Honestly, I'm not much of a stickler for rules when it comes to voting. It's like if someone's casting their vote and it arrives a few days late, given the extremely bizarre circumstances of this election, largely created by the government lockdowns, I don't much care. What concerns me more is when I hear stories about, whole swaths of votes being uncounted for seemingly political, nefarious reasons, and that doesn't sound like this. So not a big deal to me personally. What about you?
I mean, I'm not looking forward to any of this at all coming up here. I know that our primary for the Democratic Party was in April, and we were just starting to do a bunch of absentee balloting at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't get counted until they didn't make the final call until the end of July.
Wow.
For the primary with Joe and Bernie, because that was all that was left by that point.
Well, what I've read is that they will have to certify by like January 2nd, no matter what. So I don't think it can stretch that long. Where it sounds like you said it was 3 months or so. Mm-hmm. But if it even goes past Christmas or even close to Christmas, I think we'll have serious social strife. So I don't know. Today I feel like that would be a bad thing. I don't really want civil war or any craziness, but you talk to me on a different day, I might be stoked about it. I don't know.
Well, it'll also give them a chance to look out on election night and say, oh shit, we're losing. This is how many ballots we need to find. Which I think is what's worrying a lot of people. That's
my concern, exactly, is that, I'm not a big fan of democracy in the first place. I think that it's kind of a scam and it's, tyranny of the majority. So I don't much care about any of this stuff, to be totally blunt. However, if we're going to have the system, I would like it to function as it's supposed to. And I would like the person that gets elected and the Electoral College actually votes accordingly, and that's how it works out. Like I would like it to be legitimate if it's going to occur, because if we have an election that gets some person in power that I don't support either of them, and then it's also cause for major social unrest, that's just kind of a worst of both worlds.
Amen. Those of you who are regulars of the show will remember that just breaking before we went live last week, while I was flying solo, Jeffrey Toobin decided that he was going to embarrass himself up on a screen. Well, we got some updates.
Is my camera on?
Yeah. How long into the Zoom call before I take my wang out?
You want to Toobin together at the end of this or what?
I don't know how to answer that.
Just say no, bro. It's cool.
Well, it turns out that he didn't just whip it out. He was actually rubbing one out in front of the New Yorker bigs. And they didn't look very kindly on this. So it appears that he has been fired from the New Yorker and he is suspended from CNN. He says they say he's suspended. He also comes out and says that he took some personal time for himself here. Nobody knows what the story is, but I don't think he's going to get into any major trouble off of this one.
Well, reporters have been masturbating online for the past 4 years, so I don't see why this is a big deal. But apparently he took it a little too literally, and his colleagues didn't much appreciate it. I think it's great. I wish that there was video of it. I wish I could share it aggressively. I wish whenever he posts anything, he gets nothing but screenshots of himself jerking off on a Zoom call. I think that he deserves that punishment for being one of the worst commentators, reporters, whatever you want to call them.
Now, on the upside of it, I've got a new pronoun to replace masturbation when I'm taunting people over on Twitter, which I have been using liberally.
That's good. That's good.
All right. From Newsweek, Israel and the Sudan have come into another peace deal off of this. Remember 4 years ago when we heard that if I vote for Trump, that means that we're going to see World War III because of the Middle East and his Middle East policy? Well, that didn't exactly happen. It's not like when they threatened me that if I vote for John McCain, then I'll get more wars in the Middle East because I voted for John McCain and we got more wars in the Middle East.
Right. Yeah. I mean, John McCain was a clear war hawk, so that would have been much more concerning for me than Trump's presidency. I think personally, this is one of the silver linings of his presidency is that he really doesn't seem to be interested in war. That doesn't mean that he has gotten us out of the wars that he promised, and I still don't give him a ton of credit for any of this because it's largely peace treaties between countries that aren't actually at war. But I still think, any peace treaties in this area, given the conflict that has been occurring historically, is a good thing. And as a libertarian, I don't see how we could fault that.
Yeah, what have they been going at it for? What, like 5,000 years in that region of the world?
Yeah, seems like forever. I don't know, but any steps in the positive, peaceful direction, I think are a win. I'm sure it's transactional. I'm sure it's so that they can buy weapons or some other nefarious purpose. But if it diminishes war or the chances of war, particularly nuclear war between Israel and some other country, I think it's a net positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I do see that, the president is trying to get the people out of the war. I know that a lot of people, and I've tweeted at Joe Jorgensen about this when she says she's just going to end the wars as well if she gets the presidency. That's all well and good for you to come out and say that as a campaign pitch, but you've got a lot of people in Congress that have to cut you a check for the transport costs that are making a whole bunch of money off of Raytheon. So it's not just as simple as being the commander-in-chief and being able to come out and say, okay, you're coming home now.
I'm sure there are pragmatic, issues and steps that need to be taken, but I do believe that Trump probably could have been more aggressive in this. I think that he made really terrible mistakes appointing Bolton and some other, swamp monsters, and he owns some of this, even though he has given it lip service. It's 4 years deep, and we're still in all these places. So, I'm sure Jorgensen would run into probably an even bigger wall, pun not intended. So, yeah, I mean, the lip service is good, but I'd really like to get our soldiers home, if you don't mind.
Yes, absolutely, please. Hey, you remember that time when the left hated John Bolton and then they all of a sudden loved him again this past year?
Yeah, when they demonstrated definitively they have no principles whatsoever. Yeah, I remember that.
If it wasn't for double standards, the left in this country wouldn't have any standards at all.
I know. Bolton writes a tell-all, which, is largely debunked, but as soon as he comes out in opposition to Trump, all of his war crimes are forgotten. It's just horrendous.
But that is what we see from our political rivals on both sides all the time.
True.
The godfather of political talk radio, Rush Limbaugh, has come out. Cancer-stricken Rush Limbaugh says he can no longer deny he's under a death sentence. So, I mean, we all know, we knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I've actually known somebody who had stage 4 lung cancer, and she survived for much longer than expected because it was a transient cancer. It didn't start off in her lungs. It was migratory. It came from somewhere else. But once you've got it from your lungs and in your lungs, you have months, not years.
Yeah. Not exactly surprising, but disappointing. I'm not gonna do the leftist thing where you celebrate the death of your political opponent. I'm not a huge Rush Limbaugh fan, but I appreciated his voice in the 90s. I thought that having him as a counterbalance to some of the mainstream narratives was a positive. So, it's tragic.
Well, and that is one of the things with Rush too. Is, I mean, without him, we're not doing this right now. If you really think about it,
I agree.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I agree. I think he's him along with a handful of other people, even Howard Stern. Obviously Joe Rogan. Like, all these guys laid the groundwork for particularly political talk, and podcasts are their children, so to speak.
Yeah, because I mean, he couldn't get onto any network anywhere because of the way the mainstream media was functioning in the 80s when he started. So he took a almost completely dead platform, AM radio, and he turned it into something that millions of people tune into every day across this country.
That's a really interesting point that I hadn't really put together. But suppression of free speech or suppression of anti-cathedral talk, which is obviously what he would be a case of, does actually, over the long term, create platforms that are basically uncensorable because the censorship gets to be so overbearing that anyone that wants to speak their mind has to create, their own platform. And
Hmm.
I don't know. Long term, I think that freedom wins out, but in the short term, this tech censorship is really really rough.
Indeed. So our thoughts and prayers go out to Rush Limbaugh as he battles with the final stages of what he's going to be going through. I've seen a couple people close to me go through it, and I know the dude's going through hell.
For sure. Yeah, I'm fortunate not to have known anybody that has died from cancer, except for when I was a small kid. But I'm sure it's brutal.
In other news, in election news, GOP is making voter registration gains in key states. It appears that, let me get the list here again, Florida, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania are all registering Republicans to vote at record rates and massively closing the gap between their registration numbers and the Democrat registration numbers. And these are all states that Trump carried in the previous election. So given what we're seeing off this year and the statistics and everything else out there, I think he could carry those. I don't think he's going to carry Wisconsin just from seeing the last couple of elections, but what do you think off of this one?
It's not terribly surprising. The left has been terrified into staying home and doing mail-in balloting, and
Hmm.
the right has kind of dismissed COVID as a threat months ago, and they're going to be waiting to vote probably in person. So I think that it's logical. It makes sense. But where do you fall on the outcome of the election? I'm extremely wishy-washy. I really do. I lean towards Biden winning it, but I really don't know. What do you think?
I I have no idea. I pointed out to, I think it was it MJ earlier? Somebody else? No, it was Cassie Dillon. Posted a tweet out there, says, in spite of the way the polls look, how will people justify it if Trump wins or something out? And I said, I don't put any faith in the polls. I'm more concerned about whether or not the election gets held in an integral focus, because I remember sitting up watching the gubernatorial race in my state back in 2018, wondering what was going to be, watching Scott Walker and Tony Evers go back and forth, neck and neck, all night, always within a percentage point of each other. And at 1:30 in the morning, they suddenly found a box full of ballots with a gluing error that was just enough to get Tony Evers up over 1%
Wow.
above.
Jesus.
3,000 ballots.
Well, I hope it doesn't come down to that close of a margin, but yeah, I just can't get a feel for it, man. It's like
Yeah.
you look at the rallies. There's obviously, like, the Democrats have been told to stay home. They're gladly staying home. So, but then you see Trump's rallies, and it's just like I don't know. I don't know how to assess that. But then you hear the polls, and Biden's crushing him, and I don't know how to read any of this.
Come on, man. I'll kneel on you with my hairy legs, man.
I am not rooting for 4 years of that or 4 months of that before his dementia takes him.
Yeah, and honestly, over the debates, and spoiler alert on this, I decided with this past debate that that's going to go from top of the ticket blank to voting for Trump this time through. He gave a very, very federalist response to the minimum wage question, and that's what I needed to hear, that he would respect states' rights through this. He's been authoritarian and top down for a lot of the presidency, but as long as he knows where the states are supposed to land on some of this stuff, I'm okay with giving him a second chance. I had to be drug kicking and screaming to get there, but
So you're not going to vote for Joe then? I'm surprised, or Jorgensen, I should say.
I am not.
I think that's fair. I honestly, like, I don't blame any libertarian that votes for Trump or for Jorgensen. The only vote that draws my serious ire is support for Biden. I don't see any libertarian argument for Biden whatsoever.
Well, maybe you'll have to go on Twitter and ask Libertarians for Joe.
Oh God, I blocked them a couple days ago. I can't stand that account. Is so ridiculous. It's like their entire explanation for their stance is essentially Orange Man bad, and we need to bring back, I don't know, some sort of respectability to the office, as if libertarians care about the presidency being a really respected office. It's just a bizarre argument to me.
Well, that's pretty much the entire Biden campaign. Orange Man bad, and we need to bring respect back to the office. So I could see
That's
why
true.
Libertarians for Joe would be jumping onto that bandwagon.
I can see why someone would jump on the bandwagon. I do not see why you would support a war criminal, architect of the drug war. His entire 50 years in office is kind of the antithesis of libertarianism. So it's a puzzle to me.
Peter Greenberger this week got on CNN's Jake Tapper's show to talk with him about what he thinks that we should be seeing out of tech for the rest of the election and up until Inauguration Day. And Greenberger says that Trump's social media should be muted this was Wednesday before the debate, from Wednesday on until Inauguration Day. They should just shut Trump's social media down.
Who is this guy?
Peter Greenberger is a former Twitter and Google executive.
Oh my God. Well, if they want to really draw the ire of the Republicans in office, go for it. I don't know. My concern is that tech is lifting the veil because they want to be regulated, and I think that ultimately we suffer from that. So I really despise Trump's tactics in trying to push back against this. While I think that it does need to be pushed back for meaningfully, my stance and my counter proposal has been that instead of removing Section 240 or whatever the number is,
230
that allows them 230, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whichever that allows them to not be considered as publishers and avoid litigation. What I would prefer to see is have someone like Trump, who's getting abused by them, remove or unilaterally cancel all of the contracts between big tech and NSA and any of the spying apparatus in this country. I feel like that would be a much greater punishment, and it would also give a chance for some small upstart tech company to compete. So, go ahead and mute Trump for the next 10 days and cause a civil war. Great, good idea. Thank you, appreciate it.
Well, not only that, but think about this as well. There's been a lot of push over on certain alt tech platforms to try and get Trump to go over to alt tech instead of going on to the mainline platforms. I know he loves to go on the Twitter, but they want him to go over on alt tech, like your Parler, Gab. Well, the jokes write themselves if he goes over to Gab. We knew he was a Nazi. He's going to a Nazi site, or
Yeah.
BitChute. Could you imagine Trump with a DLive channel?
That sounds awesome to me. I don't really support Parler because of some of the clauses in their contracts. It's like it just seems like it's set up to be another problem. But if you went to a truly free platform, that would be tremendous. I would really appreciate any I don't know, depletion of the power of the big tech monopolies or oligopolies.
Well, and not only that, but all the Trump haters would scream as fast as they could to get over onto the alt tech platform just so they could be the first person to see what Trump said and the first person to tweet about it. See, I knew he was a fascist. Look, he's over here now.
Absolutely. I mean, his supporters would go. All of the news people would have to go because they all have to be on the platform that he's on so that they can dunk on him.
Oh yeah,
and then
they
all
gotta
of
be the first.
Yeah, and all the leftists, haters need to be there too. So, and then the libertarians have to be there just to play referee like we normally do.
Well, it was just like I said with the dueling town halls last week. You're sitting up here, and you knew where the ratings were going to go no matter what. They were trying to get people to watch. They were trying to get Democrats to watch the Biden debate on multiple devices so they counted as more views. But for the most part, you knew what it was going to be. You knew as soon as they announced that they were going to be on at the same time what it was going to be. Joe Biden was going to have mouth diarrhea and say whatever the hell that he wanted, but nobody was going to be watching because all the people with MAGA in their Twitter profile were going to be glued to NBC to see what Trump had to say because he's their messiah.
Yep.
And all of progressive Twitter and pretty much all the rest of the Progressive Party was going to be glued to NBC as well, so they could sit there with their phone in their hand saying, I know he's going to say something racist. He's going to say something racist. I'm going to be the first person to tweet about it. I'm going to get famous because he's going to say something racist. I know it is. And then everybody watches the Biden debate after it's been sanitized by ABC into clips.
Right. They only give you like the 10% of his speech that is actually understandable or comprehensible. It's really crazy because every single word Trump says is dissected, and he's dog whistling, and there's racist connotations to literally everything he has to say, even though I can't see it. So apparently I'm not the dog that he's whistling to. But then Biden goes on, basically like 25% of his sentences are unintelligible and oftentimes tyrannical, overtly so. And the media has no issue with it whatsoever. It's really, I mean, it's predictable. It's exactly what we've experienced for the past at least 5 years, probably a decade. But it still bothers me somehow, even after all this time. It still is offensive to me that they don't actually, even pretend. Like, I guess that's the new change, is that they're not even pretending to be nonpartisan. They're just all in for Biden.
Oh yeah. Speaking of Biden, Biden put out a mildly embarrassing advertisement, and he got caught and called on it almost immediately, and he had to take it back down because his advertisement featured a struggling restaurant owner who was failing under Trump's America out of Michigan. And it turns out that this particular restaurateur was independently wealthy because of a windfall that he had with an inheritance and good investing, and was a very, very wealthy Democrat donor. So they had to come and take that down because he wasn't as poor as what he was going. Let me just read briefly from the Blaze here. The ad, which was posted in the Blaze's report on the news on Tuesday, now reads unavailable and appears to be listed as private. The Twitter account for Joe Malkoon, who co-owns The Blind Pig, the popular Ann Arbor, Michigan live music venue featured in the ad, has also been made private because they found out that, yes, he was in fact very, very rich and just running The Blind Pig up off to the side instead of struggling to wonder where his next meal was coming from.
It's pretty remarkable that they couldn't find one legitimate non-democratic donor to do this. Like, there has to be some other diehard business person who is literally bankrupting themselves while supporting lockdowns that actually likes Biden, but they didn't even bother. They're just like, we'll go with this donor asshole who's a liar.
So yeah, that's what happened with that one here. The announcement came out today. This is just breaking a couple hours ago. NASA says there's more water than previously thought on the moon, after announcing on Thursday that we would have to wait until Monday to see what they had to announce about the moon. Why couldn't they say this on Thursday?
Why couldn't they say this years ago? I don't understand why we're struggling to figure out if there's water on the rock that's closest to us. Can you explain that to me? Well, I mean, we've been there allegedly. Is it that hard to find out that there's water there?
Apparently it is.
How? I really feel like, I mean, it's so close to us compared to all, like, we're planning to go to Mars and shit. Like, the moon is super, super close, and we still can't even figure out if there's water, and we've landed on it. It's just, I don't know. Doesn't add up to me.
I just kind of like the memes when they said that you'll have to wait until Monday to see what the announcement is because reasons. And people were starting to come out and say, well, that's no moon. Various things like that.
I hate sounding like a conspiracy theorist, particularly when it comes to the moon, because it is such a meme. But what the fuck? Why don't they know that there's water there? We've been there. We're gonna spend however many billions it took to get us to the moon 50 years ago, and you're not gonna like confirm definitively there's water there, and then just randomly on October 26th. 2020, we're going to finally discover that there is water. I don't know. It doesn't add up. Anyways, I hope it's true. I hope we can put a base there, and I hope that libertarians can go live there. Moon is a harsh mistress, but I would still prefer it over living with commies.
Words to live by. From the AP, the Justice Department files a landmark antitrust case against Google, and nobody cared, really. A lot of people cared as soon as it got announced, but it got memory hold really quick. I don't know if you noticed this one this week. The Justice Department on Tuesday sued Google for abusing its dominance in online search and advertising, the government's most significant attempts to protect the competition since its groundbreaking case against Microsoft more than 20 years ago.
Again, this falls into the category of the government, too little, too late,
Yeah.
and ultimately, had they not had government largesse that backed some of their operations in the interim, I don't think that we would be dealing with such a, overwhelming monopoly in search. It's just frustrating to me. We don't have a free market, and then we create more laws and more prosecutions and more lawsuits to try and remedy what ultimately is already an issue created by not having a free market. So it's just frustrating.
It is. And I mean, the free market does work to an extent on Google's side because they have a buttload of fucking money. So anytime that somebody comes up and tries to threaten them and their dominance, they just buy them.
Sure. No, for sure that's true.
Have $1 billion, hey, and just go away.
Yeah. I don't know. Ask Jeeves or whatever. Of course they can dominate in that way, but ultimately, because Google has dark contract stuff that they don't ever talk about with the NSA and probably the FBI, probably the CIA, all of these contracts that give them money when they're kind of not getting off the ground, but just a decade ago, that allows them to get this market share that's so dominant that no one can possibly compete. That to me is the issue that even libertarians don't talk about, is that ultimately they probably couldn't be in such a dominant monopolistic position had they not been in bed with government for a while now.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this is too, because the government's got plenty of money and they'll just go back and throw it at them.
Oh yeah, and any of these big companies, once they finally do get to this level, and the government says, "Okay, we're gonna regulate them," what does it amount to? We all know what it amounts to. It amounts to Deutsche Bank paying $1 billion in fines, but continuing to do whatever they want to do. Mm-hmm. It's the small guys that get put out of business, and the big boys just pay a penalty and keep it moving.
And according to the AP, Apple, Amazon, and Facebook are all under the same investigation currently. So we'll see what happens with all that.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, they're going to pay a fine and keep it moving.
All right. I've got one more here for the lightning round. Then we'll go back and check quick with the live chat again. The FDA has approved Gilead's remdesivir as a coronavirus treatment, which means that there's a treatment out there. So not everybody has to go out, run out and panic and scream at you in the supermarket for not wearing a mask.
Well, what's interesting to me about this story is that remdesivir is not what Trump was given. And Trump, preached that we had a cure based off of what he was given. So it's like, I don't understand. I mean, I do understand it. It's the FDA process, and it's just bizarre to me that people are going to talk about remdesivir now as if that's the cure when what the president of the United States wasn't given that cure. Like, that's a little bit confusing, no?
Well, plus all the red tape that had to go through to make sure that the government said it's okay for you to take this. So
yeah, I mean, this is all of it's a problem with government, of course. It's just interesting that the thing that's being touted as a cure this week was not what the president of the United States took the week prior. It's like, well, I'd kind of prefer to take what the president took because I'm pretty sure he was given the best shit. So, call me picky.
All right, that's all that I have for the lightning round here. Let's just give a quick check to the live chat here, see what these guys are doing, and then we will move off into the debates and all the fun that we had with that one here. Harvey says, I liked him in Family Guy. I'm guessing it was Rush because I remember seeing that episode where Rush was in Family Guy. That was like early 2000s.
If I saw it, I forgot it, but I love that show.
Yeah. Harvey says, isn't there another bombshell that's going to be released tomorrow? Yeah, they've been slow walking this whole Hunter thing over and over again. There's, okay, we're going to release a little bit more today.
I think it's a mistake.
Yeah.
I think it's a mistake, honestly. Like what I heard is that, did you hear this? That like 40 or 50 million votes have already been cast? Mm-hmm. I mean, we normally only get 100, 120 million votes. So basically like 40% of the votes have probably already been cast. If you have a smoking gun against Hunter Biden that demonstrates that Joe is as dirty as most of us assume, why are you not releasing this now for those people that are mailing in their ballots? It seems like a really dangerous game. It makes me think that perhaps they don't have the smoking gun against Joe Biden. I don't know though.
Yeah,
We'll find out tomorrow, right?
yeah, apparently. All right, and John says NASA wanted to hype it, and he likes my coffee mug. My roommate left it behind after she moved out, and it doesn't have any incriminating information on me, like where I work or where I have worked before, so it's good enough to put up on a camera.
Are you worried about cancel culture?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's what we will check back with the live chat here after we talk about the debate for a little bit. So get your messages in. We'll do some more. And let's talk about the shit show that we saw this past week. So Joe Biden and Donald Trump got up and they had their third and final debate this past week. It was an hour and a half. It was on CNN. We actually watched the live stream over on my DLive channel together with Stephen Ignoramus and the R-Rated Conservative, which
Nice.
was interesting for me because I was at that point that when we started still leaving the top of the ticket blank and watching with two very, very, very adamant Trump supporters.
Right. Yeah. Well, I watched it with Britt from Freckles and Britt, so we have very different feedback and outcomes on this debate. So I'll be curious to hear your thoughts.
There were a few highlights that went along with this here. One of the big debates going into the debate was whether or not Kristen Welker was going to be able to be objective as the moderator. And honestly, after watching this one, especially compared to what Chris Wallace was doing when he was up in line for this, I thought she did fairly well. She was fair. She was impartial with all of this. I mean, Trump wasn't standing up there and debating the moderator and Joe Biden at the same time. They were actually having a back and forth discussion. She was cutting Biden off when he was going too long. She was jumping in to save him a little bit,
Yeah.
but still letting the two go back and forth with each other.
I think I saw it the same way as you. However, I think that it just goes to show how slanted the field is normally.
Yeah.
That even when there was a mild bias, in my view, towards Biden, it still seemed fair to us because we're so accustomed to it being completely lopsided. But yeah, overall, I thought she did a really good job. I thought that she asked Biden some questions that I did not expect her to ask. I obviously wish she had asked more. I wish she had followed up. Are you denying that the laptop belongs to your son? Are you denying any of the information is valid on the laptop? She didn't get him on the record for any of that stuff. But in fairness, neither did Trump. So
Yeah.
he blew an opportunity in that regard.
Well, one of the big things also that came through this particular debate was the fact that this was the first time that in an official capacity, the moderator was going to have the power to cut off the microphone. Now, when that came out for the first time, I thought for sure that Trump was going to back out of this and come out and say, you know what, the hell with this. No, I'm not going to have my microphone cut off. I'm just going to go have a rally.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was actually in a way it was beneficial to Trump. It allowed him to not feel obligated to jump in and do basically what he did in the first debate, which was just pummel Joe and not allow Joe to step into his own traps, which
Yeah.
Joe is more than capable of creating. So I thought in that way it was beneficial. However, I thought that Joe, from my vantage point, was kind of on his game. I mean, he's terrible. His ideas are awful. He's a platitude machine. He doesn't really tell you anything. But as far as Joe Biden, October 2020 health goes, I thought he did a pretty good job. And unfortunately for Trump, it did not benefit him as much as I thought to let Biden speak uninterrupted.
Well, I've got some video that did benefit the Trump campaign, I think. We've got a couple things to look at for this here. Now,
Oh, there's no doubt there's some. I thought I've been prognosticating that Biden's going to drop a hard N-word at some point just on accident because he's just so out of his mind. And he never said anything that was like an actual campaign ender. which to me was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. One of the things that yeah, he comes from a different time. That's what that's the excuse that they'll make for him.
Corn Pop was a tough dude, you know?
Has anybody confirmed that there was a corn pop at any point?
No, that's the weirdest part about this story. He could just get away with saying anything. I don't even care if there's a corn pop. I'd like him to confirm what the hell he's talking about when he has kids rubbing the hair on his legs down. That's what I really want people to ask him.
And he loves it when kids jump up in his lap.
Yeah, he does.
He's never been called to account for that.
Yeah, and that's when he learned about roaches. Whatever that means. All of that entire clip is the most magnificent, bizarre just display of either dementia or just overt pedophilia. I have no idea what it meant or what it was, but it's bizarre to me that, like if Trump was on the record saying anything half that crazy, it would be all they ever talked about. And they don't talk about it at all. And no one even cares. It's just like it's like a fringe right element thing that cares about the fact that Biden bragged about, having kids jump on his lap and rubbing his leg hair. It's crazy.
Well, and the thing with the mic cut, going back to that just for a second, is
Sure.
I pointed this out right in the beginning that this was the first time that they had a microphone cut off in an official capacity. Because we all remember the primary debates where Mr. Yang was in there and he was trying to talk and he was getting his message in, and everybody saw this.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, the rules don't really apply. We know that they kind of make them up on the fly, but the fact that they tried to pretend that it was going to be bipartisan and that they were going to cut both. I don't know about you, but I only noticed one time where Trump got cut off for like 2 or 3 words and Biden didn't get the axe once. Is that what you saw too?
yeah, it was when they were talking about healthcare, actually. He was starting to talk and they cut him up when, you saw his lips keep moving and just mid-sentence, he was gone.
Well, was Steve losing his mind, ignoramus, that Trump didn't hammer him on the laptop a little bit harder? Because it bothered the hell out of me.
No, actually, Steven wasn't paying that much attention to the debate while he was watching. He was live tweeting as much as he could.
Oh, okay.
The RRC, on the other hand, I got a very, very East Coast heavy accented, "What the fuck was that shit?" I don't know if you've ever seen the R-rated conservatives program, but
I have.
he's
Yeah,
got a
he's
very,
great.
very thick accent, and he's very vocal when he's not happy.
Yes, that guy's great. I think I saw him on, or I think he had Steve on. So, yeah, he's a maniac. So, did he also feel that like Trump asked the appropriate questions with the laptop? Like I have to. I know we all sound like Dave Smith oftentimes, but I had to agree with Dave on this. I totally disagreed with him that Trump won that debate handedly. I thought that was a bizarre perspective, but the fact that he didn't get Biden on the record saying, "Is the laptop your kids or not? Are you saying it's not?" Because if he said, "I don't know," that would have been at least enough grounds for doubt. And if he said no, then you have Biden potentially definitively lying on the record about the information in the laptop. And if he asks him, is that information legitimate? Are you saying any of it's fraudulent? Are you saying that it's actually, because he was willing to talk about Russia and how it's propaganda and blah blah blah, but all Trump had to do was say, are you saying the laptop is not your son's? Like, why didn't he ask him that? I can't believe that opportunity was missed. And I think it goes back to the fact that Trump just doesn't prepare very well for these things.
Yeah, no, that is definitely fair off that. Speaking of lies that Biden told, I've actually got him coming out in a flat-out lie off of this one here when he was talking about, ironically, healthcare. So let's have a listen to what that sounded like, and we'll have our thoughts over what he had to say for this. Let's get that up here. Interact. There we go.
What he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine, he won't even have a choice. They want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on health care, and we're going to do even better.
Okay, Vice President Biden, yes, this is...
By the way, that was the point, and I don't know if you saw it in the video or not, but that was where he got cut off on The Voice.
Yep.
But now Biden comes out and basically lies about the ACA.
for you, your health care plan calls for building on Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option, become Biden care. The public option is an option that says that if you, in fact, do not have the wherewithal if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly, the idea that I want to eliminate private insurance, the reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why not one single person with private insurance would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did.
That was the line right there. Nor did they. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor.
How can they continue to run with this lie? It's so blatant. I don't know how they do it.
Because it fits the narrative.
I mean, I guess just because the fact checkers won't fact check him, so he can say whatever he wants. But it's just insulting. If anyone's paying attention, it's just insulting.
Fact checker's going to fact check, I guess.
My gardener's here. Is that picking up on the mic?
No.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm not picking it up. Nobody's saying anything in the live chat for it, so.
All right, perfect.
We're all good. Well, and yeah, that's. It went on like that too, but I mean, from the start of this too, I don't know if the libertarian sensors in your brain were picking up where he was actually starting his speech, but it's that public option thing of you can either go out and buy it on your own or the government will buy it for you, which is where the private market for shit goes away.
Right. Well, if you have a public option, you're basically crushing the private market. So I don't understand. I mean, I understand why he would say it that way because it gets him to play, ride the fence. But if you're not an idiot, if you're not an economic ignoramus, Steve, then then you should be able to identify immediately that this is socialized medicine, like clear as day.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's so hard for me to look past the point where he said that nobody would lose their health care to actually look at the rest of the substance of what he said off of that too. This is the path down to single payer. It absolutely is.
Well, but this is exactly what we said when Obamacare was passed, is that this is the path to single payer. And we knew that because we knew that they couldn't get it passed originally. But then the handful of people that benefited from Obamacare are going to be devout in supporting it forevermore. And all they have to do is convince and convert a handful more people, and then all of a sudden single payer becomes an option, and then you have no private market for healthcare. And that's the path. That's basically how they do everything with socialism, is they give you just a crumb here, and then it metastasizes into full-blown Rush Limbaugh shit.
It's my healthcare plan, and it's my signature accomplishment, and I'm not going to make something like that to fail. And why would you say something like that?
It's funny too because the Republicans kind of played into his hands in the sense that they didn't fund some aspects of Obamacare, which crippled it, and ultimately, because of its failure, they're now going to be able to usher in a grander, more socialized medicine type plan. And it's just all so predictable. It's really exhausting.
Well, I talked at the top of the show about my decision to, and I could not find the video clip of this, but my decision to go along and vote for Trump begrudgingly this time through. I was happy to do it the first time because he wasn't a politician, and I was excited to see what somebody outside of the Beltway could do. You had to drag me kicking and screaming this time, but there was one point when they were talking about the minimum wage, this particular debate, where I said, you know what, I've got to give him the chance. So when asked about minimum wage and a new federal minimum wage, Trump said, Alabama is different from New York. New York is different from Vermont, which is something that I have been preaching since I started down my political path, and why I chose federalism, a mostly defunct political party, over libertarianism or even the GOP or the Democrats.
Sure.
Because I do recognize, and I've lived in two very, very different states in my life, that what works in Massachusetts, where I lived for 2 years, does not work here in Wisconsin. And I'm sure, even though I've never been there, it doesn't work in California. It's all different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it just goes to show how absolutely screwed the political system is, that the sitting president of the United States says something even marginally 10th Amendment sounding, and we're like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's like, yeah, obviously this is a good thing. This is exactly what every fucking candidate should be saying, is that the laws should not be on a federal level. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't have unemployment insurance that's like nationwide. You shouldn't have minimum wage that's nationwide. It's psychotic to do so. I live in one of the most expensive places in the country. Mm-hmm. New Yorkers feel the same way. I mean, obviously it's a product of our government being horrendous, but ultimately, yeah, like $15 an hour here, you can't possibly survive. Whereas in some parts of this country, that would actually be livable. So, I mean, it's just bizarre that like that is such a rare thing to hear. But I agree with you. It was good to hear, regardless of how much of a given it ought to be. It was still refreshing, I guess you could say.
No, when I was under and I hate to say the Obama economy, but that's really what it was. But under the Obama economy, it was just after the recession, it was so hard to find a job where I was living, and I was an auto mechanic at the time. That's every guy's backup job. So the market was flooded with people, and the wages were stagnant because of it out there. And I remember when the market started bouncing, and I actually moved into a different market that wasn't nearly as flooded. Up in, I was living in Kenosha. That's where the market was flooded with mechanics. Up in Madison, all these white collar boys, I don't ever want to touch a wrench. I have a guy for that kind of thing. I remember the first time I took home a paycheck, and that's where I started, was $15 an hour. The first time I took home a $15 an hour paycheck, I felt rich.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how old you are, but my first paycheck was $4.75 an hour. Mm-hmm. So 15 would have been a windfall. And I was living in San Diego. So, but I was a kid. I was living with my family. It was no big deal. It was just like basically money to buy beer on the weekend. But yeah, it's so infuriating that they talk about the minimum wage having to be livable. The minimum wage is not intended to be livable. No. It's the minimum wage at which an employer will employ anyone in this country. And if you diminish that, which we have already done, diminish it by increasing it, you basically rid talentless, which I say with all graciousness in my voice, talentless kids. That is the value of having no minimum wage or an extremely low minimum wage, is that it allowed people like me to get a foothold, to start to learn some skills that gave me market value. And I don't understand. I keep saying that, but I do understand. I do understand the misunderstanding of economic principles that allows people to feel this way. But ultimately, if you're a mother of 2 or 3, single mother, and you're going to rely on the minimum wage, and that's why that's always the case. That's always the sample that they bring up. It's like, oh, I met this mother, Deborah from Georgia, 3 kids at home, single mom. She's making $9.75 an hour. She can't feed her kids. It's like, that's not the person that the minimum wage is for. It's so insulting. It's so economically illiterate and ultimately self-defeating. It just creates unemployment for the people that are trying to learn things, particularly children, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. It's exhausting.
And for the record, I am 36. So
nice. I just turned 38. So same boat.
Yeah. Did you catch this bizarre conversation when they were talking about the lockdowns and Biden coming out saying that he wanted to lock more people down, and Trump just reaming him over the fact that we can't all live in the basement like he does?
Yes, I loved it. I thought it could have been a little bit harder, but that's probably just because I'm so furious about the lockdowns, hence my show. But yeah, it was good. It was definitely a good moment.
Well, let's have a listen to what that sounded like. Because we'll do this stuff so that people don't have to sit down and watch this entire shit show.
Yeah, perfect.
Is it this one? It's not this one. Hold on. Had some technical difficulties here.
Take your time.
This is the one I want. There we go.
This is, don't worry, it's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump, your reaction?
I say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room in the White House and go away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten, every meeting I had,
don't worry.
He made a lot of money somewhere. I don't know where he might have made all that money from.
I think we have an idea.
Well, that was kind of a theme of the night too. I mean, yes, okay, we complained that he didn't get Biden on the record for saying that he was involved with the Ukraine thing, but he was dropping hints on that all night.
No, it was good. It was good. I just wish I always assume that the president of the United States knows more than me, because they're privy to confidential and top secret information. It's like, if he knows more than me, tell me more than I know. Shed some light. Because he never, anytime he said it, it would be open-ended. I don't know, where'd that money come from, Joe? And it's like, if you know, say it, bro. Make the accusation, make it firm, make him deny it overtly so that we have him on the record. I just think that he's playing it a little bit too soft. But I agree, it was good. And he was consistent, he was persistent, and I'm sure he opened some people's eyes who are not in the Twitter sphere that have no clue what this laptop's all about. So it's probably not a total loss. I just think for people like me, it would have been a relief to hear a little bit more.
Well, did you notice, and I pointed this out to both the guys that were on my stream off of this, and they kind of were in agreement at this. I mean, we were sitting down and watching Joe Biden's medicine fail in real time. He started out good, but by 45 minutes into it, he was tripping over his words. He was saying wrong shit, and he was saying stupid shit.
Yeah, that's his pattern, though. I don't know what they juice him up with, but I believe strongly that they hit him with some stimulants that make his brain function, at its highest RPMs, and then as the night goes on, the engine starts to overheat. I really think that's what's going on.
Well, he had this gaffe here, which inspired a lot of internet memes that inspired all of those wonderful gentlemen in polo shirts over on the West Coast to come out and celebrate over the fact of this here, and inspired my Twitter name briefly.
I think I know where this is going.
Let's have a listen to this. That I actually started 3 minutes and 44 seconds into this clip because it was a 5-minute clip talking about, first off, President Trump saying that he is the least racist person in that room. Oh my God! I looked up and said, "Are you serious? He's actually going to go with that direction?"
I love it when he says stuff like that. And the reason I love it is because I honestly believe that Donald Trump is not a racist. I really believe that. So when he says shit like that, especially to a black woman, it was fucking hysterical. It gives me so much joy in my soul. It's ridiculous.
Well, let's hear what Biden had to say back around that.
President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours
That's actually a good line.
Every single racist fire. Every single one. He started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy has a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
Where do you want to start? Because there was a lot of stupid shit in just that one run-on sentence.
Yeah, I mean, that was like probably his most aggressive direct line of attack on Trump, and it was just filled with, I mean, as you know, they're all lies. But I think probably the funniest is when he referred to a bunch of sandwiches, the poor boys.
Well, I mean, just to go down with that too. I mean, the Mexican rapists, that's been debunked numerous times.
All of it, and the good guys on both, or the whatever he says, good people on both sides is, but he also follows that up with, and I'm not talking about the white supremacists here. They should be condemned fully. It's like
The
that
very
every
next
example,
line.
yeah, every example. If you care at all to know the truth, every single smoking gun dog whistle that Trump has ever been accused of, as far as I've ever seen, and if anyone out there can prove me wrong, I will eat my fucking words gladly. I have seen no evidence of him actually being overtly racist. So lay it on me if you got it.
Well, and I mean, you go back even further into this. The Muslim one, that particularly digs into my side, because the Muslim ban that he was talking about is the travel ban that Barack Obama had in place, minus 2 countries.
Right. Basically, every any policy that Trump has actually implemented that could be viewed as evidence of his racism is a continuation of the Obama presidency. The kids in cages started by Obama, and then the Muslim ban, same thing. It's transparent.
Yeah, he took 2 countries off and he continued the same one that's been in place for 8 years.
I forget why did Trump do that? What was the impetus for that? Do you remember?
To prevent terrorism from spreading into the country.
But was there a catalyst though? Was it like after some shooting or something? Because I swear there was some event that led to it. I can't remember though.
No, it was like one of his first weeks. He said, "Okay, we're going to stop travel from these countries that are the same ones that Obama did."
Okay.
It was literally a continuation of just what Obama did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those policies are so toothless anyways, because they always allow you to fly from those countries to another country and then into ours. So it's like, it's all pointless.
And I think some of these other countries are going to come off of that too. I know Sudan is coming off of that, as we saw in the beginning of this, when they're normalizing their relations with Israel. That was one of them that was on the list.
That was probably the leverage point, or one of many leverage points that they're using to get these countries to the negotiating table. And well, I'm not a huge fan of sanctions and things like this, travel bans, all that. If it leads to peace, I'll grin and bear it, I guess.
So the last one, and this is, I think a lot of people have agreed at this point that this was where, in a pivotal point where you need to win Pennsylvania, Biden ended his presidential campaign on Thursday night with this little line here that has become one of the most talked about things in this particular campaign. Let's have a listen to what Biden had to say about the oil industry.
Would he close down the oil industry? Would you close down the oil industry?
By the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I would
that's
transition.
a big statement.
It is a big statement.
That's a
because
big statement.
I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Because
Why would you do
the
that?
oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
Here's the deal. But
That's
you
a
can't
big
do
statement.
that. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do
All
give
right.
it to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
We have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you
Okay.
remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you a
Would he
question.
close down?
The most entertaining thing to me watching this, not just the fact that Biden said that he was going to end the oil industry. I noticed this during the debate, and I never noticed this. I mean, you can tell that Trump is a Manhattanite. Just watch his hands.
For sure.
But
He's always playing the accordion.
where do you want to start on this one? Because that was 55 seconds of probably the most damning thing that Joe Biden has said, in spite of the fact that this laptop is running around.
Yeah, well, to me, this has been his platform all year. So I don't see it as such a smoking gun. Why is it that you feel that it's such a big deal? I mean, I agree. It's bad, and it's definitely going to lose him oil workers and things like that. But it's just like, if you've been paying attention, he has said iterations of this same sentiment his entire campaign, has he not?
He has been saying that, but the mainstream media has been doing a very, very good job of covering it up and trying to keep it up out of the limelight. And now he just says this right on CNN live,
Yeah.
where they can't
Yeah.
sit back and cover it up anymore.
That's a fair point. Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, he's always right in the fence. He's like, I like many aspects of the Green New Deal, but I would never support the Green New Deal. And it's just like, we know what you're doing, bro. You're trying to appease the hard lefties in your midst, while simultaneously not losing the oil industry votes, which I don't know what the split is on oil industry votes, but I would imagine most of them are Republican leaning anyways.
I
But
don't
yeah,
know about that because there's the union aspect to that. Most of them are in union states. The
True,
union
true.
hates Republicans. I know. I grew up in a union household.
That is generally true, but when it comes to an industry that is being its very life source is being threatened, I guess that's the shift. So I guess that's the political risk right there, is that because it is a union type job, they would tend to lean Democrat. But then if the Democrat comes out saying, "Yeah, we're going to ban fracking," that would be detrimental.
So I think a lot of people. I know that one of the main searches on Google that was tracked that night was, "Can I change my early vote?" And
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
huge.
that is massive.
That's the one thing that I've been wondering too, is especially with this laptop stuff, is like, if there is a smoking gun, like the early reports was that there was actual text messages confirming that basically Hunter had said that 10% of everything he receives in these contracts is set aside for Joe, and if that's the case, it's game over. From my vantage point, like that is transparent corruption. And then there was also rumors of there being, actual sex with underage people on video and all sorts of stuff, which I don't know if any of that's been verified at this point. But for the people that are voting early, if any of that stuff actually hits the internet right before election day, I would want to change my vote. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was a thing, and I look at this too, and I realize the fact, and I look back with the AOCs and the Green New Deal, with Joe Biden coming out and flip flopping on the Green New Deal and saying he wants to end the oil industry, the coal industry, everything else. Realizing I do have a little bit of a background in manufacturing, and I understand the fact that you can't just end these industries wholesale and expect something else to come off of this too.
Of course.
Do you have any idea how much coal it takes to make that wind farm that they're jacking off about when they talk about the Green New Deal?
I have no clue, but I'm sure it's a lot.
That thing could spin until the blades fly off, and it won't generate enough energy to offset the coal that was used to make the steel to stand the thing up.
That does not surprise me.
Do you have any idea how much oil is sitting in the casing of this cup right here?
I have no idea.
This is made from oil. Well, recycled materials, but plastic comes from oil.
Oh yeah. No, I'm aware of the multiple ways in which our economy is driven, pun intended, by the oil industry. It's just, as a free market capitalist, it's so offensive when we think that we can dictate based off of some grand scheme and just be like, we're gonna ban all of these technologies and that'll force us to come up with carbon neutral technologies to replace them. It's like, that's not how it works, guys. Like, it has to be economically beneficial. Otherwise, you're going to create shortages. You're going to create price gouging. You're going to create all sorts of negative consequences that we can't even foresee. And I'm living it. I live in California. I'm having fucking rolling blackouts because we've shifted, like Germany did, to requiring X% of our total electric production to be from green renewable shit. And it doesn't work. And that's the problem, is that the technology isn't there yet. And particularly, even if the technology was great, if you have the government managing it, you're damned regardless.
Yeah. Now, the oil thing wasn't the only thing that drove leftists into desperation. Did you notice this past weekend that a lot of people on left-wing Twitter seemed a lot more desperate than usual?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like the tide has turned a little bit, and they're feeling a little bit more unsure, I guess, about their inevitable victory.
I know I've had, with the desperation coming out of them, I've had two reply tweets that just blew up with likes. I've got one that's at like 470 and still rising, which at a, I don't know, 1,700 follower account is a huge amount of likes on one single tweet. When I replied to the video that one girl, like, oh, well, my dad's voting Democrat for the first time in his life and he's dying. I made one comment on that and it blew up.
I think I was on the same thread. Yeah.
And then that asshole on Saturday, well, my contractor that's building my deck has a MAGA hat in his truck there. Here's a poll. Should I fire him? And it's yes and absolutely. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what the policy is comments. For crybabies talking about their contractors. But if you get your own tools, you can insulate yourself from all this bullshit.
I just can't imagine caring about someone's political ideology that's working on your property. Like, even if it was a commie, if they did good work and they took their fucking pay and left, like, we're all good, bro. Go back to your commune. I don't give a damn. It's just such a transparent virtue signal to their social media that it's like whatever ratio you catch for doing stupid shit like that, you deserve. That daughter who said that, I'm one of 6 daughters and we basically talked our dying dad into voting for Biden. I was like, can you imagine your daughter? You don't get a dying wish. Your daughters have a dying wish for you before you die. Like, oh, you have done a terrible job as a parent if your daughters come to you on your deathbed begging for you to vote a particular way. It's just, the world is broken, bro.
Well, the desperation seemed to kick off on Thursday night during the debates with this tweet from Darshun Kendrick, who is a sitting member of the Georgia State House.
This one blew my mind.
And it blew the mind of all 5,000 people that ratioed this tweet. And I think it's still rising at this one too. Did at Real Donald Trump just say 545 kids they can't find their parents for came through cartels and coyotes? How the hell does a coyote bring a whole human across the border? Lord, stop talking. # final debate.
Oh my God. I think I responded, you should be disbarred for this. and it got like 300 likes. So yeah.
Jesus. I was on the edge of saying diversity hire. Somebody else did say diversity hire in this, but
I feel like Steven would say that. And it's probably accurate. I mean, she's such an idiot. I think she was the same one that said later on, she said minimum wage at the state level. How the hell does that even work?
I saw that one too. That is the same woman.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, you're an attorney and you know nothing about the law.
Not only that, you're a lawmaker in the state of Georgia on top of it.
Oh, Christ. We're in so much trouble. People like that need to be just not in power, but like not in any role. They should just be unemployed. A person like that should not have a job, genuinely.
Well, and one of the discussions that came out of this here, and I had this on a couple of separate threads, was whether or not, because she wasn't the only person on the left that was bringing up this idea, and it spawned a plethora of memes. My favorites being 2 coyotes with speech bubbles saying, hey, I'm going over to the U.S. to get some kids. You want anything? And the other one says, yeah, bring me back some queso.
That's excellent. Yeah, Nico had some little kid riding a coyote, and I was just like, this is terrific. I can't believe. I mean, I guess because I'm in San Diego, it's such a given to me. Like, coyotes is a well-known fact. You're not from this area. Is it common parlance? Is it a well-known thing that coyotes are human traffickers for illegal immigrants?
Yeah.
Okay, then how does everyone not know? How do all these blue checks not know this? I don't understand.
Well, that was the question that a lot of us were having. Where do they actually not know, or are they pretending willful ignorance so they can get another cheap attack against the president?
Jesus Christ, that makes you look so bad if you're going to intentionally misread that egregiously just to try and dunk on him. Ultimately, it's like you're trying to dunk, but you're getting rejected at the rim hard.
Well, That's all that I got for the debate here, and we've got a couple of topics to go along with this here. What was your takeaway? I know that you had kind of mentioned that a lot of people were saying that Trump won. What were your biggest takeaways? Let's say the three biggest takeaways that you had from the debate that night.
Sure. Well, I think I'll just recap what I've already said, but I think first and foremost, Trump had an opportunity to potentially like end Joe Biden if he has information on that laptop that we don't have, and he didn't take that. So that means to me that he probably doesn't know the depths of what's on it, or perhaps the things that are on it aren't such smoking guns that he can actually bring them up at this junction. So that was the first thing. Secondarily, I thought that Trump probably it was a wash. If anything, I thought that Biden held up pretty well. And this is from someone who hates Biden. So granted, the bar is very low. If I'm being totally impartial and I went into this with no knowledge of either of them, I probably would have thought Trump had won. But I guess because I think more highly of Trump's debate capabilities, I felt as if he slightly underperformed, whereas I thought Biden slightly overperformed. So it could be viewed as a wash in that regard, or some people probably could view it as Biden winning it. And then lastly, I don't know. I think that Biden he didn't say anything that ended his campaign, and as I've said multiple times, I think that was, as always, the greatest risk with Biden is that he could say something at any point on live TV that just ended him, and he didn't do that. He did say some stuff, as you pointed out, that definitely damaged his campaign and probably eliminated some voters that would have cast votes for him. So I don't know. That's probably all of the bigger picture stuff. And then ultimately it was just classic, fun, modern politics, I guess.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
All right, let's see what the live chat is saying here. They've been busy and active off of this here. Yamafago says Trump did really well in Pennsylvania earlier and says that could be big for him. Harvey McLeod says, whose polls? Polls told me Hillary had a 99% chance of winning.
Fair point.
John says, I think Libertarians for Joe is a troll account. Yeah, that's been discussed in some certain DMs that I think you and I share.
Yes. I genuinely don't think it's a troll account. I think that it's, I mean, whether or not it is a Fed account or just someone who's like trying to appear to be a libertarian who's definitely not, like that's possible. But in my view, a troll account is supposed to be funny, and I don't think it's supposed to be funny. So
Saint says all Trump had to do was look at him and ask if the laptop story is true. Yeah, you said that quite a few times too.
Yep.
Let's see. Might be wrong is in here. Says Trump's done nothing to free the health insurance marketplace. That's infuriating. I do think that is a second term kind of thing. I don't think he could have done that in the first term and won again.
I think that's also a fair point. I think that's the main reason I would like to see a second term for Trump, is because I would like to see him, because I don't know if you read the articles today, but he's claiming he's gonna fire the director of the FBI, the CIA, like everyone, like it's a full purge, because I think he knew, and he's known for a while now, that the deep state is against him, but I don't think that he felt he could just take the axe to all of them in his first term. So from my vantage point, that would be the greatest benefit to libertarian community, is if he were to, actually get a second term and then just hammer the deep state. And, whether or not he'll do it, I don't know. I'm not going to hold my breath, but that would be phenomenal if he did.
Well, and you were there that Saturday too, where I was saying the other part of that with him getting the second term is he's got fuck you clout at that point, and when they throw the omnibus in front of him and say, sign it or we're holding the government workers hostage, he's going to say, no, I'm not going to sign that. Bring me back a budget.
Yeah, that'd be great. And that all of the headlines the past week that are supposed to get people in an uproar against Trump have been the biggest things I've liked about him. They're like, Trump just removed employment protection for thousands of federal workers. I was like, fucking awesome. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I saw that one this morning. Ron says, why is Elaine's voice different? And she grew a mustache too. Then he says, at least the shirt is red.
I'm transitioning.
Ron says, my first job paid $1 an hour. Might be wrong, says minimum wage was $4.25 when I started working. I took a job digging ditches for a plumber because he paid $5 an hour. My desire to make more resulted in me learning a trade. Well, that's
exactly
awesome.
right.
Might be wrong.
Yeah, that's terrific. And my first big job was working actually for my dad for $5 an hour, putting up ceiling fans in 118-degree heat in the desert area of California for like a 18-unit apartment complex, and it was brutal. And what it taught me wasn't how to install ceiling fans or to be a construction worker, but what it really taught me was how much I hated blue collar work, and I had to figure out a way to use my brain to stop doing it as soon as possible. And that was that was a super valuable lesson, regardless of how much I got paid. That wasn't the lesson ultimately.
Wyatt says, "Do you see Kamala Harris in Cleveland polling location?" Yep, I've got that video. It's up there. It's on the list. We'll watch that one.
Is that not voter suppression to have some DA standing outside a line?
I never thought about the DA angle of that, but I mean, I know it's against Ohio law for campaigning within a certain distance of the polling location.
Yeah, she's fucking using a bullhorn on people standing in line to vote. That seems like totally not allowed, but whatever.
I never thought about the DA aspect of that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Might be wrong. Says his rhetoric around the Central Park Five was pretty bad. I don't
agree
know
with
anything
that.
about that.
His rhetoric wasn't overtly racist. However, it was extremely damning for what ended up being innocent people. Mm-hmm. So I think he deserves serious disagreement and pushback on that. I still don't view it personally as evidence of overt racism as much as I do as, probably someone who shouldn't be in charge of, criminal justice.
Right.
Because he came across as a real like 3-strike advocate type of dude in that period of his life.
Might be wrong. Says her tone when she said, "Why would you do that?" was hilarious. She was stunned that he said it. She interrupted him right there because she knew how effective that was. Yeah, that's been one of the hotly debated things too throughout the week. Was she saying, "Why would you do that?" as in, "Why would you end the subsidies?" or "Why would you do that?" as, "Why would you say that?"
That's a really good point. I hadn't even considered it, but I'm sure she knew that was not the politically correct answer to give in that moment. So I lean towards the latter definition.
Might be wrong. Says there's a lot of voters who can't bring themselves to vote for Trump. They'll just stay home rather than vote for Biden. I don't know if that's true.
Well, I'm one of them. I couldn't bring myself to vote for him. I voted for Jorgensen despite the fact that I fucking hated her campaign. Yeah, I mean, I agree. There are a lot of people that will end up not casting a vote for Trump that would probably prefer to see him win because I'm in that boat. But I still think that there is as they constantly talk about, a big silent majority that's going to turn out for Trump in this election, and that's why it'll be closer than most people predict.
Let's see. I got a couple of new names in here. Ron says Solyndra over 350 million wasted. Tech is not there yet.
Yep.
Harvey says when he called Trump Abraham Lincoln with a laughing. Blippity Blop, my friend from over on the other side of the pond, says, "Oi, J. Edgar. Oi, mate." And Stoic Hunda will get the last word on this set of topics. Says it's against the law in Indiana too. So we will check back here after we talk about the stupid laptop story. I don't think we're going to spend a ton of time on this just because we can't put a lot of the pictures or the videos up
right
about this because they will get us taken down on YouTube and probably Twitch as well. So, I mean, this whole story with the laptop just gets weirder and weirder. Every day it goes on. It starts off, and I talked about it last week because I was running solo last week, but it all started out in the beginning of, well, there's this laptop here that got left at a computer store. The owner turned it over to the FBI, but he made a copy of the hard drive and then gave it to Rudy Giuliani, of all people, a personal attorney who then turned around and turned it over to the Delaware police and leaked it out to the New York Post. And now we're here, where there's a pair of black feet giving Hunter Biden a foot job while he's smoking crack.
And it's alleged to be Malia Obama, correct?
I've heard that. I've heard no confirmation of that. But it's just, where do we get from one side to the other here?
I don't know how the information is getting leaked to us publicly. I think there's multiple levels to this that make it a meaningful story that don't make it just pure political theater in my view. And first and foremost, it's that it was turned over to the FBI, and the FBI apparently did nothing with it.
Yes.
And given that the FBI has been up Trump's ass for 5 years and literally spying on him, and now there's some damning information against one of his political opponents, and they basically suppress it. I think that's why he came out saying he's going to purge the deep state if he gets reelected, and rightfully so. I think he made a huge mistake by not purging them years ago. But regardless, I think that's like the first tier of this, is that once again we have confirmation that the FBI is dirty as fuck.
Yeah.
Big whoop, right? Like, we all know this, but for those that don't know it, it's an important revelation, I think. And then secondarily, I don't think that the sex stuff and the drug use, any of that is meaningful. Hunter is not running for, the presidency. However, if the information on the laptop demonstrates and proves that Biden, Joe, was benefiting financially via corruption by using his political power to enrich his family, and he benefited in any way, honestly, I think it's corruption, even if you're just using your political power for your son to get that money. But if you're actually getting 10% of it, it's like open and shut, like slam door.
Yeah.
You're corrupt. So I think it's probably true. Whether or not we'll get any evidence of it, I don't know. And I'm skeptical, because I personally believe that pretty much everyone in politics at the highest level is doing the exact same shit. So they don't want this investigation. They don't want it to come out, because they know that their siblings and their family, their kids are all, financial benefactors of their own corruption. So we'll see if I'm wrong. I will be gleefully so.
Well, and you're absolutely right where you say, will we see any evidence of this? I've actually prepared. I practiced this all day. I have an impression of the way that the mainstream media has been covering this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
That's it. That's the impression.
I had a feeling. I actually tweeted out yesterday that John Oliver has totally lifted the veil, basically, because normally his show, what's Last Week Tonight or whatever it's called on HBO, they try and come off, like, regardless of whether or not they're partisan, which we all know they are, but they try and come off as if like they have principles by which they are evaluating the news fairly, regardless of the fact that they lean left. They're still going to report it fairly, is kind of like how they try and present themselves. This past week, not at all. They came out, the first minute of the show, he spends just talking about how the laptop story is bullshit and how you shouldn't believe any of it, and then he spends 29 minutes talking about how evil Trump is. Yeah. And it's just like, it's so transparent, and it's because the election's a week away. So like, any of the veneer of nonpartisanship is just removed.
Well, and I want to walk back to what you were saying about the drug use and not being involved with Hunter, because there is an aspect to that I listen to various other content creators too. One of the ones I listen to all four of Styx's videos every day.
Yep.
And he brought up something that I didn't think about at the beginning of this when I first heard, because I heard about the drug use and everything. I thought, okay, well, this is just a psyop to try and get the conspiracy nuts up there. And as more and more of it's coming out, we're hearing more and more of it's true. One of the things that he pointed out that I didn't think about, it didn't cross my mind at first, but now that he said it, I can't stop thinking about it, is the fact that Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, is on tape doing drugs, massive, very hard drugs, and in a sex orgy, but consenting adults.
Well,
Joe
adults,
Biden,
we think.
Well, hopefully. Joe Biden wrote the 1994 crime bill that was putting black men in prison left and right for that same activity.
Right.
And he knows that his son is doing this now. So we're looking at a massive double standard between the kids of politicians and the kids of people in Compton, to use an example.
Yeah, of course. I think that the hypocrisy there is meaningful, but it's not as politically damaging as obvious corruption.
No, because, we know that that's happening. Like you said, that's happening on every level.
Right. And like, yeah, the drug laws are fucked up, and like we're all against that anyways from Jump Street. So like that's not surprising to me. That wouldn't be enough of a I don't know, silver bullet to really damage Joe. But if they can demonstrate with documentation that Joe has taken 10% of the largesse that his son has received because of his own political maneuvers, that to me is like, whew, that's big. So I hope, I don't know if I hope it, but if it's true, I hope it comes out. Like if it's true, I would love to see someone who's actually corrupt in politics, has been doing this shit for 50 years, have some comeuppance. Like we never get to see that. So that'd be great if it happens.
And as far as the Malia Obama thing that comes out of it, I don't buy it. But
interesting. Why not?
I've seen the credit card picture first before without her name on it. That's just the standard generic credit card picture with some Coke next to it. I've actually seen that picture numerous times with numerous different names on the card.
Oh, you have? Okay. Well, then
Yeah.
that changes things.
And honestly, even if it is, it doesn't matter to me at all because she's not even in a position where her father is going to run for anything ever again.
True. I think it would just show the incestual nature of that family. Like Hunter is banging his dead brother's ex-wife or widow, I guess you could say. And then he's also banging
his dad's boss's daughter.
Yeah, exactly. Like this dude's a fucking savage.
Yeah.
Whether or not that damages Joe, I agree. Like maybe it doesn't.
It is bizarre to see the lifestyles that the rich and the famous go through. And I mean, being in California, I'm sure that you've seen a lot worse of it than I have.
I've seen copious drug use and lots of sexual, issues, I guess you could say, foibles. So yeah, this stuff doesn't really surprise me. This is all the stuff that I assume happens in the Beltway, but it's kind of nice to have some light shed on it. But at the same time, if it's just him doing drugs and banging hookers and stuff, like, again, I don't think that's the damning silver bullet that the Trump campaign's looking for. I think that the corruption is really what they're trying to get out there. And if that's true, I hope we find out soon because people are voting by the millions right now.
Yeah. And again, you're right on the money off that we need to stop focusing on the sexual stuff and focusing on the fact that there's a picture of Joe Biden standing with the Kazakhstan premier because he just got that 10% kickback. And was it Bobolinsky is the guy's name? I always forget. Bobolinsky is out there, saying, yeah, that absolutely was Biden, and he's going and testifying in front of the FBI for it. So,
yeah, terrible name for that guy to have because it makes him sound like a fucking con man right off the jump. But I wouldn't be surprised if what he's saying is actually true. So, I just hope we find out. The problem is I don't think we're going to get this information before the election. I really don't. I think that if it requires an investigation, especially of this magnitude, it'll damage Joe in the sense that like he'll have the cloud over him, that same concept that Hillary had with the FBI reopening the investigation into her emails right before the election. But I don't know if it'll be damaging enough to take it from him.
Well, and you've touched on too with the effect of this on the election, and that's one thing that has made it hard for me to buy the validity of this at the beginning. Now, the more information that's been coming out of it, the more and more I buy it. But at the beginning, I absolutely was like, this is just an October surprise. This is something that they dug up to try and go. I didn't buy this at first. I said, I don't believe a word of this right now because it came out in the second week of October, before an election.
I was super skeptical, Jump Street as well. But when I found out that this information had been given to the FBI a year ago and it's just coming out now, then I was like, okay, well, this isn't just a pure October surprise. Sure, the release date is the October surprise, but it's not whole cloth fiction, which is what much of the Trump-Russia collusion case was.
All right. We're going to check in with the live chat here for just a sec, and then I've got just a couple of quick hitters to close out the show, including the video that Wyatt brought up there with Kamala standing outside of Cleveland. So let's see. Harvey says he was straight up lighting that pipe. It's absolutely meaningful when his father authored a crime. Yeah, we touched on that. Authored the crime bill that imprisoned people for the exact same thing.
Sure, of course.
Stoic Honda says the crazy part is that if this was Trump's son, it would be blasted 24/7.
That's also true. Yep.
John says ACB just got confirmed, so that's actually one of the things that I have on here.
It's official. She's a Supreme Court justice.
I think she's supposed to get sworn in like less than an hour, so she hasn't taken the oath yet. But the vote went through.
I gotta say, man, as much as I don't like modern politics, and as much as I don't like the duopoly, as much as I'm not a Republican, I gotta say, I am relieved to have had as many justices appointed by Trump as we could get. I think that it bodes well for us, sustaining at least a modicum of our freedoms moving forward, even though they are diminishing rapidly.
Yeah. Kid Vicious says, "What are you talking about?" We were talking about the Hunter Biden laptop at the point that you put that out there. Harvey McLeod says, "Yay," and we will circle back after these little quick hitters that I have here. So the first one, let's just watch the video. This is Kamala Harris standing outside of a polling place where she's not supposed to be because by Ohio law, you're not supposed to be... Did I put that up there? Yeah, I did. You're not supposed to be standing in front and campaigning in front of a polling place. So let's see what that sounds like.
That would have been my assumption, yeah.
Come back here. There you are.
You are going to make the decision about your future, about your family's future. It is through the voice of your vote. And you have the power. The power is with the people. And you know that. That's why you're standing in this line today. And I just came to say thank you.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be that close.
Yeah, I mean, it's... I don't know. Voter intimidation would be a tough claim to make since she's not even a sitting DA anymore, I don't think. But it's definitely not like standard protocol. If Trump were to do that in some like hotly contested area, I think that the media would be flipping out. So it's pretty unfair that they're not doing the same to her. But is anyone surprised? No.
Well, speaking of unfairness in the media and polling and various other things that go along with this here, Joe Biden had a very, very well-attended rally this past week. But the problem for him was the fact that it was attended by Trump supporters who came in and tried to drown him out. Just a brief read here from Fox News. Pro-Trump group crashes Biden drive-in rally in Pennsylvania. A parade of people backing President Trump on Saturday crashed Democratic nominee Joe Biden's drive-in rally in Bristol, Pennsylvania. The former vice president called the band of Trump supporters parked outside his rally chumps when addressing the crowd. And he quotes, they actually deleted the tweet off of this, but he quotes, "I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I will govern you as an American president," he said. "I'll work as hard for those who don't support me as those who do, including those chumps with a microphone out there. Look, that's the job of the president. The duty to care for everyone, my duty to heal." I don't know about you, but if you're going to come out and say that you're going to be a president for all of America, you probably shouldn't call your opponents chumps in the exact same breath.
Yeah, probably not. But I mean, it's kind of like with Hillary. We all know how these people think about us. You know, they hate our fucking guts. So I appreciate the honesty, honestly.
So the drive-in crashers came in and used a bullhorn. We're using car horns to drown out Biden's voice, yelling 4 more years through both the bullhorn and loud chants off of this. And there were a good 50 people out of there, which is about 5 times the size of a normal Biden rally.
Yeah, well, that's the hardest thing about predicting this election is that you have real serious fanfare for Trump, and then like everything you get for Biden seems astroturfed, it seems totally fraudulent, and it's tepid at best. I mean, they put people in cars and shit just to make it look like he has a decent turnout, and it's still hardly anybody. It's wild.
What's wild to me is the fact that they're having drive-in rallies. Where's the easiest place to hide a gun?
True.
In your car. Are they getting searched? Well, there are only 10 cars going to each one of these things. It'd be easy to search them, I guess, but...
You know what's really bummed me out? And I know this is going to sound really bad, but the fact that the only meaningful threat of violence from the right wing during this entire period when all of our civil rights were just trampled upon as overtly as has ever happened, maybe in the history of the country, or at least in my lifetime. The only example that they have of like a plot was an FBI, ran investigation into, some not Proud Boys, some Bogue dudes that were talking about dealing with Whitmer. And it's like, that just tells me that our militia movement in America is basically dead, because I can't believe that there hasn't been more stories like that, honestly.
Yeah, it's probably not the thing to say on YouTube either, but I was always surprised that nobody took a shot at Obama in his 8 years. With as bad as he was driving the economy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one thing for sure, but we were locked down. Like, we had no jobs. Everyone was like, especially right-wingers, were flipping out. I know the libertarians were. I'm just surprised some fringe element didn't pop up and do something crazy. The fact that it didn't happen, I don't want to say it's disappointing, because I don't advocate for violence, but I do very much advocate for defense of my freedom. So I'm surprised that someone didn't do something at any junction in this entire year. It's really surprising.
Well, and I'm sure that if you did say that you advocated for it too, there would probably be a knock at your door within the next few hours by men in SUVs and sunglasses.
For sure. And I'm definitely not advocating any sort of violence towards the president or his opponent. I'm just saying, please don't lock me in my house anymore. Please. Okay.
Did you see the 50 Cent controversy this week?
I did. I saw some white chick say that she used to bang him, and then she'll keep banging him if. Okay, lay it on us.
Well, let's set the stage on this for just a moment off of this. So, Biden's tax plan could create a tax rate of as much as 62% for New Yorkers and Californians, studies show. Now, this is a combined tax rate, which is one of the things that they've been trying to debunk and say, well, no, Biden's not going to demand that much money from anybody, anywhere. He's not going to have 62%. Well, no, but once you combine that with California state taxes or New York state taxes, you could start to see some pretty major chunks of money come off of this.
Of course.
Now, 50 Cent came out with a tweet that said, fuck that, I'm with Trump at this point, and he has since walked that back. But the notable quote that came out of this tweet is, I don't want to pay 60% tax rate, I don't want to become 20 cent. Which people came out and reminded him that he would be 19 cent if the 62% tax rate came in.
He rounded up. Whatever. He would have had deductions.
I mean, once you start to get some of these rich, wealthy people, especially a rich, wealthy black man, coming out and realizing the fact that he's going to get taxed out the ass.
Yep.
What is
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate the fact that he walked it back.
I do too. I think that was really pathetic. And as Steve said, he was hardcore SIMP-ing instead of PIMP-ing. I think that that's the one thing that I really like about the fact that there are some very wealthy black men in America now, is that they aren't all going to go along with the partisan Democratic line, because they're like, hey, this actually damages me personally. Like they have a real reason to start to reconsider their voting policies and to stop having undying allegiance to the Democrats, which do nothing for them but tell them they're going to do everything. So I think it's a positive. I think that, Kanye, 50 Cent, there's been a handful more. Ice Cube even, who he didn't come out in support of Trump, but he came out, questioning the allegiance to the Democratic Party. All of these are good things, and ultimately, I hope it continues.
And, well, I think part of 50 Cent's walking this back was he got that offer of some white girl.
Yeah.
Chelsea
Handler.
Let's have a listen to what that had to sound like.
You heard about my ex-boyfriend, right? 50 Cent, and his support of Donald Trump.
Yeah, what's going on between you? I saw your tweets and I go, wait, what's happening? Because you said he was your favorite ex-boyfriend, and then what does he do? He's supporting Trump?
He says he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes, which, by the way, isn't a plan of Joe Biden's. That's a lie. So he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes because he doesn't want to go from being 50 cent to 20 cent. And I had to remind him that he was a black person, so he can't vote for Donald Trump, and that he shouldn't be influencing an entire swath of people who may listen to him because he's worried about his own personal pocketbook. So Oh, I haven't heard back from him yet, but I am willing to, seal the deal in more ways than one if he changes his mind and publicly denounces Donald Trump. I might be willing to go for another spin, if you know what I'm talking about.
Embarrassing.
I cringe just listening to that.
I know, that's the third time I've heard it, and it still fucking bugs me. He's not. It has to remind him that he's black, as if he forgot first and foremost. But then, basically, like prostitution for voting. It's just not a good look on so many fronts.
Yeah, and I mean, coming off to the other side, though, if he was going against the plantation and him being 50 Cent on top of that, I feared for his safety. I feared that he would get shot 9 more times.
True. I think that's the next domino to drop is, do some of these guys that get out of line, do we start to have a fictional East Coast, West Coast rap battle again to take some of these guys out? I don't know. I hope not. I like it because it's great having like the rappers of my youth start to become kind of woke on some tax policy shit. Like, that's progress as far as I'm concerned. So, like I said, I hope it continues. I don't know if it has any meaningful impact on this election, but I think in the future it could. I really do think that Trump is going to get a greater percentage of the black vote, particularly the black men vote, because of criminal justice reform and the fact that he was really well liked by them in the 90s. I think that there's a chance that could actually be the deciding factor in this election, which would be fucking hysterical if the black male vote is what gives him a second term.
That would be amazing. And these guys used to love Trump too. Keep that back in
know.
mind.
He was in rap videos. I used to see him.
I've not seen that, but that doesn't surprise me, given as much as they rapped about him.
Exactly.
He was an icon to him.
Yeah, he totally was. And he's kind of like, he's like the white guy's, he's like the black guy's version of a white rich billionaire dude. Like, all his shit's like encrusted in gold, and he's got the model chick, and he's just kind of, he lives that lifestyle. Plus he's from New York. He's got the kind of fuck you attitude that a lot of the rappers did. And I just think that, in many ways, if it weren't for the media, like if he were a Democrat, I think he'd be tremendously popular by the black community. But just the fact that he's got that R before his name makes him untenable.
RRC had a spicy take. I wasn't going to go to the live chat just yet here, but I can't let that spicy take go by. He says, if he's 50 Cent, Chelsea must be a food stamp.
Oh, God. I think I'd rather have food stamps than fuck her.
Yeah, I might be in the same boat off of that one. It's weird. Like, the original intent that I had for Ed's World when I was first formulating in my mind back when I started my channel was pretty much a takeaway of Chelsea Handler's show, to have a monologue and then have a roundtable back when she was still on TV.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got to actually appreciate that vision a few weeks ago when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. And I actually did that. I had a bunch of people get together. We had a roundtable for that.
Nice.
But I do have to remember that it was very much a ripoff of Chelsea lately.
Well, it's too bad because, so many of the comedians and the talk show host type formats used to be decent. Like, I really enjoyed The Daily Show with Jon Stewart before it got completely psychotically woke. And Chelsea Handler, I remember having some decent comedic chops back in the day, but it's like, as these things become more overtly partisan, it just loses any sense of appeal to me or sense of humor.
Breaking news right now, as John pointed out, Amy Coney Barrett has been confirmed by the Senate. This was a long fought battle. We all kind of knew it was going to happen when Mitten said that he was in favor of at least having the ceremony off of this. She had her nice long sit in the Judiciary Committee. We got to hear a lot of really bad takes off of this here. So a little bit of timeline that went along with this. Now, after the Judiciary Committee that I talked about last week with my guests, we went along, and it was pretty quiet throughout the basis of it. They had the vote came out, what was it, Thursday? That they had the Judiciary Committee vote, and all the Democrats got up and said, no, we're going to boycott this. We're not going to come into this.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think it was Thursday.
Which they changed the rule. And I warned, when I did talked about it on Contemporary, I warned them against that. It's like, don't change the rules. because you don't want to do that. This is how we got to the point where we don't need the filibuster to have Supreme Court justices or court appointees either. The Democrats are kicking themselves in the ass for that right now, but it is what happened.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Lindsey Graham moved the vote back to 10 a.m., which left the Democrats there to scramble and try to figure out what to do, because they were planning on having the vote in the afternoon and then the Democrats walking out at the lunch break and not coming back. So now they were rushing to podiums to come out and run with this. And then over the course of the weekend, Murkowski came back and said that she was confirming that she was going to vote for Barrett, which had the solid confirmation. Romney, after the hearing, said that he was going to do so, which only left Collins, which she didn't need to be in there anyway. And apparently the vote just went through as we were on air. So, huzzahs for Amy Coney Barrett.
Was it 51, 52? Do you know?
I have not seen yet.
I guess it doesn't matter, but I was just curious how close it was. That is good news, though. As limited and as infrequent as we get any sort of political news that is kind of a pro-freedom type step, I think this should be considered a victory for the libertarian movement in some regard, because it's like, at least she's, pro-gun, and some is an appealing trait as well.
Absolutely is. Did I just drop D-Live?
It glitched on my end for a minute, so you might have.
Oh. Maybe. Okay, I'm back up over there. I just looked down because I've got YouTube and D-Live over on monitors here, and I saw the streamer offline was on D-Live for a second there. But
I think you're also on a different mic.
Why? What happened?
It just doesn't sound like it's picking up on your main mic.
Let's have a look over here and see.
Your audio quality has diminished. That's all I'm saying.
That is weird. All right. I don't know what's going on with that. I will figure that out on the back end and see if I can correct this here. But let's finish out the show, because I think I've got one more here. Yes. The announcement that came from the FBI in the middle of the week, the weird announcement off of this, so a little bit of preface that came with this. The U.S. blames Iran for threatening election emails, says Russia may interfere too. So the story came out at the beginning of Wednesday that people were getting letters and emails of various sorts. People were getting letters or emails from the Proud Boys saying, "We know who you are, we know how you're going to vote, and you're going to vote our way. Otherwise, things are going to happen to you," and signed as the Proud Boys. That was confirmed to be Iranian influence, but in New Hampshire, people who were necessarily pro-Trump were getting letters in the mail saying, "We want you to vote the right way, do the right thing, but if Trump doesn't leave office peacefully, well, just hope that you have your fire insurance up to date."
Yeah.
So there was a lot of weird stuff that went along with this. I don't know if the anti-Trump ones were foreign or not.
I don't know either. These are the stories that, by the time you get the truth, the damage is already done. So I don't even waste my time trying to figure it out.
So, well, and we all know that there's going to be interference coming from every single direction every time you go along. That's no secret at this point. We do it in their elections. We try and influence them to get the outcome that we want.
We're like the OGs of election manipulation, particularly foreign interference. So it's like, I don't have any pity for us, and I don't really take offense to it when the other countries give us 1% of a dose of the medicine that we've been giving them for decades. It's like, yeah, this is how it works, guys. Eventually people are going to fucking fight back. So, I hope it doesn't have a meaningful change on the election. I seriously doubt it will, but I can assure you that if Trump wins, it'll be, portrayed as the biggest thing ever. And then we'll have to go to war with Iran or something stupid.
So yeah, it's never going to end. It's going to keep going off of this here. I thought that it was kind of anticlimactic. And honestly, when it was all happening, when Christopher Wray came out and said they were going to have the press conference, because that was the first thing that I saw, was just a news story that we're going to have a press conference. I thought it was going to be the emails thing. I thought it was going to be the laptop thing. I was a little bit disappointed when it wasn't. I'm not going to lie.
Me too.
All right. That's what I got for a show. That's what I got here.
Awesome.
You got anything else you want to add?
No, it was a blast. If anyone that's watching that wants to check me out further, Liberty Lockdown Podcast on iTunes, Spotify, all over the place, and follow me at Liberty Lockpod on Twitter. And
You
thank
got
you.
just a little bit ahead of me there.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to check with the live chat quick and then let you go and sell your wares there while I was opening the D Live chest.
Oh, well, you asked me if I had anything else, so you got to take that opportunity when you get it.
Let's check with the live chat here real quick. See what we've got there. Last thing we saw was that ACB got confirmed. Watching trains go by joined us. Is one thing that bothers me about Trump is during impeachment he said he wanted to sue them, but what's his face told him this is Washington and that's not how politics works, and he seems to go along. McConnell, I think it was. I don't remember that.
I don't remember that either, but that has been the case, is that Trump blusters a lot and then he kind of plays ball.
Mm-hmm. Ron says Handler offered him another role in the sack. RRC says Chelsea Handler is a garbage pail. That's
Agreed.
interesting. Watching Trains Go By says that song. Hold on. Can I read this? Okay. I think I can read this. I think this isn't going to get my channel shut down. Watching Trains Go By says that song, It Wasn't Me, will be the black anthem once black women start asking, which of you bastards helped elect Trump? Watching Trains Go By says Trump's crushing October. He says us too, but you're back now. So I guess I must have blinked on the internet somewhere, which it's Spectrum. It does that from time to time. And then he'll get last word. Watching Trains Go By, he'll get last word and says, did you guys touch on that Five Fingers Lake tattoo of Hunter's and the link to Nexium? Any solid links to that yet? I know nothing about that.
Yeah, what did he say? The 5-finger what tattoo?
He's got apparently a Five Fingers Lake tattoo of Hunter's and the link to Nexium.
Ooh, that would be interesting. I didn't see that at all.
No, and like I said, the mainstream media is saying absolutely nothing about this, so you got to take everything else that you see with a grain of salt. I mean, I like the Gateway Pundit, but I do know what their reputation is too, so.
True. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's October. Who knows if or what percentage of this is actually accurate, but it's interesting. It makes for good theater. That's for damn sure.
All right. And with that here, I'm going to let you finish off selling your wares here. I'm going to hit the D Live chest. So you guys over on D Live, if you want to get some lemons, go ahead and grab those. And yeah, finish. You were talking about where you could find out on Twitter.
Yeah, if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter at Liberty Lock Pod, and my show is Liberty Lockdown Podcast on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your free shit. That's where my stuff's at.
It's a good show. I actually just picked it up and put it on my rotation recently. I got to get caught up on my audio platform too, so we can get everything up on that rotation as well. But yeah, go check that out. Good interviews. I just listened to the one with Liberty Anders, so
nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's great, man. I can't believe she's like that smart at such a young age, but she's going to do big things for us, I think.
I think so too. And with that, that's going to be it for us here. Let's get the outro music up here and let's head on out of here. So where is it? There it is. All right. And I do want to thank everybody who took the time, came by, watched us, kept us honest up in the chat, reminded us when we dropped offline for just a half a second over there as well. So once again, thank you for checking us out on all the live stream platforms. If you're just catching up now and you want to catch the rest of the show, you can catch us on demand over on YouTube and over on BitChute.com, or catch us, as we mentioned, on the audio platforms, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go and check any one of us out. If you're over on iTunes, leave that 5-star rating and a good review. That helps us move up the charts. It helps us overcome Apple's algorithm, which is algorithmically demoting freedom-based content. And if you want to catch up with us or other great creators, you can find us on the Freedom Scoop Media Group Network, along with the Generational Gap, the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the Freckles and Prick Show, and the R-Rated Conservative. So come and hang out with us over there, pick up some of our swag, and help us support these great creators over there. And lastly, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Clint, lead them out with some words of wisdom.
Freedom, folks. The question is tough, but the answer is simple. Freedom. Keep listening to Jay Edgar. Keep it locked. Liberty Lockdown. We out.
Take care.